Alrighty, so we have a lot of books here. So it's gonna be a very fun video, but I need to move them so I can sit down. Alrighty. Hello guys, I'm Bethany and welcome back to my channel. I'm so happy that you're here and I'm so excited about today's video. I have so many books to talk about and I'm so excited. So I'm going to be talking about my favorite romance books, literally of all time. I did a video earlier this year of like my top 10 favorite romances, but since then I have read so many more, and also I really want to separate these into categories. So basically this video is all my favorite romance books, but separated into categories, so it's easier for you to pick one you want to read. So I have quite a few that I own, and then I have a few written down on my phone that I either own on my Kindle or I don't own, but I borrowed from the library or I read, something of that sort. Also, since I took all those books off my shelf, my top shelf is literally empty, but it's fine. I've decided to be extremely specific with my categories. So we're starting with YA, which is very lighthearted and young. You know, it's gonna be very wholesome to like very emotional, sad romances at the end. So we're just gonna kind of take a ride from lighthearted to semi-lighthearted to heavier books to emotional books. And that's what we're gonna do. So first is YA, then rom-com, then I'm gonna tell you closed door book recs, and then I'm gonna tell you some spicy ones. Not to say that these books in other categories aren't closed door or aren't spicy, but I just want to tell you my favorite books that are closed door and that are spicy. Yeah, if that makes any sense. Contemporary romance, I honestly, this is kind of a category I don't really know. I know these books are contemporary romances technically in the description of them online, but they're more books that aren't rom-coms, but aren't like super heavy. They're like kind of in the middle, you know what I mean? And then we have second chance romance because it's my favorite trope, or one of my favorite tropes. And then we have sad romances, which is pretty much emotional, that kind of vibe. Then we have a couple Colleen Hoover books. Not to say that there's not Coho books in sad romance section, but we have another section for Colleen Hoover that don't really fit into any of the other ones. And then other, because it did not fit in any of the other categories. So that's what we're doing today. I'm so excited to talk about these books, and I'm gonna try to not talk about them as much, like each one as much, because I'll be here all day. So first we're gonna do YA romance. And I'm very excited about this section. I love a good YA romance. So first is Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. This book is so cute, so wholesome. The sun is just going in and out. That's where we are today. We're just gonna have to get through it, you know what I mean? So basically if you want a wholesome romance that also happens to be YA, I highly recommend this book. It's so good, so cute. And she's actually coming out with another YA romance called The Do-Over. It should be out literally today when you are watching this video, so I'm very excited to read that one. She loves romances, she loves rom-coms, she loves love, and she just wants to be loved. And she's also going through grief of losing her mom. So I honestly think you should go into this book pretty blind, because you never know what could happen if you do that. Like, you might be surprised by what happens if you go into it blind. So the next one is The Summer of Broken Rules by K.L. Walther. I love this book. It's so cute. It's perfect for the summer, obviously. I'm pretty sure it was my summer book recommendations, but I love it so much, and it is YA. It's basically about this girl named Meredith, and she's going to Martha's Vineyard to spend time with some family for a wedding. I think her cousin's getting married, and she is grieving her sister also, so there's some grieving here. I don't know what it is about YA romances that they're grieving, like a parent or something like that. I kind of don't like that. It makes me really sad. But she's grieving her sister, and basically they play a game of assassin, and she meets this guy who is in the wedding party. So good. Love both of those. I'm so sorry that the sun is just not cooperating with me today. It's just not. The next section is rom-coms. And honestly, a couple of these, I don't really know if they're rom-coms, but they, I feel like, are lighter than the books in the next section. I don't really know. I'm putting them here. You do with that what you will, but I feel like these are like lighthearted. You're gonna have a good time reading them, but they might have some topics that might be a little, I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying. Basically, I feel like they're rom-coms, and that's what we're gonna do. Especially the cover. They really give rom-com in the cover. So the first one is Much Ado About You by Samantha Young. I love this book. I thought it was so cute. It's basically about this girl who is like kind of done with her life in Chicago and decides to move to somewhere in England, I think, like this little tiny town. She ends up working at a bookstore, and she meets this guy, and it's just a great time. I loved it so much. I thought it was just so cute. Honestly, such a cute romance. I highly recommend this one. I read it a couple years ago, and I just love it. It's so great. The next one is Meet Cute by Helena Hunting. Helena hunting? I don't really know how to say that, but I kind of picked this up on a whim at the library and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was so cute. I think it's basically like an enemies to lovers. Like this girl kind of did get along with this guy in college and then she runs into him again at her like job, her law firm, and she's basically having to help him with a situation in his life. So I really enjoyed it. I thought it was so cute. On my Goodreads, I literally put the cutest, sweetest book. So it's a fun rom-com. I don't know if these books, pretty sure they do have some spice in them, but I really enjoyed it nonetheless. And then the last one is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. This is just a cute, fun time. I highly recommend it if you're wanting a cute, fun time. Basically, it's like an enemies to lovers. He is a professor and she is a like PhD student. She thinks he hates her, and you know, it's that basic trope, and it's about science and it's a great time. Also, Love on the Brain is a really great time as well, but I liked The Love Hypothesis more than Love on the Brain. But I did really like Love on the Brain as well. So next are some closed door romances, and no one's gonna be surprised that I'm recommending Sarah Adams. So The Cheat Sheet and When in Rome you should start with, but you should read all of her other books as well. They're so good. But these are my favorite. This is a sports romance, friends to lovers, and this is a One of Us is Famous, small town, Grumpy Sunshine vibe. So good, especially for fall. You should read these two. They're so good, and they're closed door. But truly, they're some of my favorite romances of the year, of all time, and they happen to be closed door. So if that's what you're looking for, I'm recommending these two. I think you should read them because they're so good, but all of her other books are incredible as well. Now we're getting into some spicy books. These books I loved so much, and they just happen to be spicy, and I just have to look past it. So first is It Happened One Summer and Hook, Line, and Sinker. I don't own It Happened One Summer, like physical copy, so I'm just showing Hook, Line, and Sinker. They're both so good. They're basically about two sisters that are going to this small town in Washington, and this one is like a friends to lovers kind of vibe. I think the other one is Grumpy Sunshine maybe, and they're both just great. I think I like this one a little bit more, but they're both so good. Highly recommend, and they're very spicy, so if you want that, I got you covered. Next, if you want spicy, the Addicted / Calloway Sister series. I haven't finished it. I think I've read half of it, so like 5 books, and I love it so much, and it's extremely spicy. So if you're looking for a good romance book that's also extremely spicy, this is the book for you, or the series for you. I highly recommend it. It's so much fun. It's also really big, like found family with these siblings and their significant others, and it's just a great time. I highly recommend. Now we're getting on to the contemporary romances. So these are kind of just mid of like the line here. Like we have lighthearted, we have heavy, and this is like the middle where there's some heavy topics, but for the most part you're gonna enjoy the book and it's not gonna make you cry. You know what I mean? No one's surprised by this. Let me get the books I have here. Anything by Abby Jimenez. Truly anything by her. So I have the Friend Zone series. I don't own the second book, but it's the Friend Zone, the Happy Ever After playlist, and then Life's Too Short. All of them are so good. And then this is her book that came out in April, Part of Your World. So good as well. And then we have Yours Truly that comes out next April. And this is my favorite book, literally my favorite romance of all time. I'm obsessed with it. It's so good. And you just need to read all of these. This is kind of like an intertwined standalone series. And then this is about Daniel and Alexis. And then this is about Alexis's best friend, Bree. Small town in this, doctors, all kinds of good stuff, and I just highly recommend these. Next is Beach Read by Emily Henry. I love this book so much. It's so good. It's set in like a beach town. This girl is going to her dad's beach house, and the guy that lives next door, she didn't really get along with in college. So basically they are both writers and they're having writer's block, so they decide to swap genres. So she will write like a action movie and he will write a romance, and you just see what happens. It's so good. It's my favorite of Emily Henry's books that I've read. I've only read that one in Book Lovers, I'm pretty sure, but it's so good. I loved it. Next is Lease on Love by Fallon Ballard. I love this book so much. I'm saying that about every book, but this is one of my favorites of the year. I think it's so good. It's set in New York City, and this girl named Sadie is looking for a place to live. So she finds that this brownstone that is like for rent, and she basically gets like a room or a part of this house that Jack lives in. It's basically a forced proximity roommates to lovers type vibe, and it's just so good. And I definitely think this would be great for the fall time because there are some Thanksgiving, Christmas moments in here, and it's just great. So highly recommend. Also, I'm so sorry that the light is just gone now. The sun's gone. So the next section of this video is Second Chance Romances, and I'm so excited because this is one of my favorite tropes literally ever. So we're gonna start with my favorite one of all time, which is Before We Were Strangers by Renee Carlino. I love this book so much. It's literally incredible. It's so good. It's basically set in New York City. It follows Grace and Matt, and they met in college and they fell in love, and then something happened, and 15 years later he sees her in New York City, and you basically just see what happens. Second chance romance, you know what that means. It's so good. Then we have Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. Love this book so much. It's, I keep saying that. We know. Oh, the sun is back. It says 6 summers to fall in love, 1 moment to fall apart, a weekend to get it right. Basically, they grew up together, living next to each other, and they fall in love, and then something happens. They see each other years later. You know, childhood friends, lovers, second chance romance. So good. Then we have Love in Other Words, which is pretty much the same thing, but I love Every Summer After and I love Love in Other Words both, so you should read both of them. They're so good. So basically they are childhood friends to lovers. Well, technically childhood friends to lovers, to strangers to lovers, you know what I mean? They love to read, they love books, and they see each other again years later, and you know what happens. So good. And then this one was in my contemporary romance section, and then I changed it to a second chance romance because it definitely is. So this is Funny You Should Ask by Alyssa Sussman. It's basically about this writer, and she gets this like piece to do on this famous actor. I think he's an actor. Yeah, he's a movie star, and something happens that weekend. Nobody really knows. She writes the piece, and then 10 years later she's asked to write another piece on him, and it's just second chance romance. So good. Okay, now we are getting into the sad romances, so buckle up, peeps, buckle up. So first is Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan. I just read this in October, and it was incredible. Literally so good. It's like a small town romance vibe. So basically this girl named Bree is like running away from her life and where she lives, and finds herself in this small town, Pillion, Maine. And when she gets there, she runs into Archer. He doesn't say anything to her, and he's kind of like standoffish, and from what she's heard in the town, no one really talks to him, but she's intrigued. So it's definitely like a two broken people find healing together type vibe. It's so good. I don't know if it's technically sad, but it's definitely emotional. So that's what I put in this section. A lot of these are just emotional. So next is some Coho books. The first two are It Ends With Us and It Starts With Us. It Ends With Us is definitely like way heavy, way like sad, while It Starts With Us is like definitely lighter. It Ends With Us is about Lily. So basically she lives in Boston, she has her own business, and she meets this guy named Ryle who doesn't really want to date, but somehow they end up dating. He really likes her and they end up dating, but she's also struggling with her childhood love, Atlas, and there are some trigger warnings in this, so beware of that. And then this one, I won't tell you if you haven't read It Ends With Us. I'm not gonna tell you what It Starts With Us is about, but it picks up right after It Ends With Us ends, and it's so good. Like, you should read these. This one is definitely way lighter, and I love that about it, so I just love these. I honestly, Colleen Hoover, she is good. She writes good stories, honestly. And then next is very emotional. This is All Your Perfects by Colleen Hoover. I love this book, but it is so heart-wrenching. Literally bawled my eyes out. I have a reading vlog reading this, so I'll link below if you want to watch me cry. So it's basically about this couple, and it's going from then and now timelines to tell you about Twin and Graham as they met and fell in love, and then 7 years later when they are struggling in their marriage. Also look up trigger warnings for this book because there's definitely a big trigger warning in this, but I really loved it. It was so heart-wrenching, but it was so good. The next one is One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book is not technically sad really, but it's just very heart-wrenching and very emotional. So basically this girl is married. She married her high school sweetheart, and then he goes missing in a plane crash on their like 1 year anniversary, and years later she has met someone new, she's engaged, and she gets a call saying her husband is alive. He's literally calling her saying, hey, I'm alive. And so she has to figure out what to do, if she should go back to her first love, she should stay with the guy she's engaged to. It's a whole whirlwind. I own it on my Kindle, so I don't have the physical copy, but it's so good. Also, Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. It is pretty heart-wrenching, but it's not as heavy as All Your Perfects and It Ends With Us. I feel like it's lighter, if that's possible, but it's basically about this woman who just got out of jail, and she's going to this town where she did the thing that made her go to jail. And she's just basically looking for reconciliation in some relationships and things like that. And it's so good. I actually have my mom reading this book right now because she wanted a book to read that I recommended that would keep her attention. And that is also on Kindle Unlimited because that's what she's using to read books, and I recommended this one because I think it's so good. But I did ask her, I was like, are you okay if it's a little sad? And she said yes. So if you're okay with the little emotional moments, I highly recommend this one. It's so good. We are almost done, peeps. We are almost done. Okay, next is a very sad book. It's very sad. It's not just emotional, it's sad. So it is Bright Side by Kim Holden. It's basically about this girl who, I'm pretty sure she's in college, I think, and she is just very bubbly. Her best friend calls her Bright Side because she's just so bubbly and outgoing. And she meets this guy and she doesn't really want to date. And so you're just gonna see what happens. It's so good. I really loved it, but beware, it is sad. And now I have a couple of Colin Hoover books that didn't really fit in the heavy book section. I feel like these aren't as heavy as these other ones, and that is November 9th and Ugly Love. I loved both of these books. November 9th is basically about Ben and Fallon, and they meet one day on November 9th, and Fallon is about to move to New York City, and so they decide to meet every year on November 9th. Ugly Love is about Tate and Miles, and it's basically like brother's best friend, kind of like almost friends with benefits to more, honestly. I didn't love those as much as the other ones I said, but I did enjoy them, and they're not as heavy as the other ones I mentioned. Now we're on to the other section because this book just didn't fit anywhere else. I didn't really know where to put it. And that is The Dead Romantics by Ashley Faustin. This book is so great and so fun. Well, not necessarily fun because it is sad at times, but I feel like it's just full of hope and just a great book. I highly recommend it, especially for the fall time. If you haven't read it, you should be reading it. It's basically about this girl named Florence, and she is a ghostwriter for a famous author, and she basically feels like romance is dead, and then she ends up meeting a ghost. So that's all I'll tell you. I loved it so much. I thought it was so good, full of hope, and I just loved it so much. So that is the last one, and that is all the book recommendations I have for you. I hope this video was helpful. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you found a book to read out of all these books because I had so many. You probably heard me talk about some of these before because all of these I really love, and I've probably talked about before because they're so good. So I hope this was helpful. Let me know if you want any other book recommendations videos. I would love to do them, and I definitely will be doing this again in the future once I read a lot more romances because I think it's very fun to do every so often. Also, these aren't just for this year. These are literally of all time. So I read some this year, I read some last year, years past, you know? So I love these books so much, and I highly recommend them. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to subscribe. I post every Tuesday and Saturday here on YouTube. I also have an Instagram and a Bookstagram, so you can follow me over there. It's a great time. I also have a video all about my Bookstagram if you want to watch that. Also, by the way, this sweatshirt is merch from Sarah Adams' shop, and it's based on When in Rome. So that just tells you how much I love that book that I got a sweatshirt from it. So cute. I will link the merch shop below if you want to buy this. But anyways, I think that's it for this video, and I'll see you very soon for my next one. Bye.